Assalamu alaikum dear students. I'm Pizza Mohammad Rafiq. I welcome you all to online video lectures brought to you by CM's Model Boys High Secondary School, Kapara. Well, today we are going to talk about tenses in general and present simple tense in particular. But before we proceed, we must know what a tense is. Tense. Tense is simply a category which expresses time reference with reference to the moment of speaking. A time reference with a reference to the moment of speaking. So, when we pass a statement, it actually indicates that time. So, we all know there are basically three kinds of tenses. Past tense, present tense, and future tense. Now, once again, all these tenses, this past tense, this present tense, and future tense, they have different kinds of forms. I mean to say, they have simple forms, they have progressive forms, and they have perfect forms, and of course they have perfect continuous forms. All right, now I shall not straight away start my topic. I need to make you aware about a few more terms which we are going to use in our topic or in our upcoming lectures. Look, some cases of sentences. First one is assertive. Assertive, which means declaration. It can be affirmative as well as negative. So we have assertive type of sentences. An assertive sentence can be affirmative or it can be negative. All right? So you need to remember affirmative sentence and negative sentence. Number two, interrogative sentence. Interrogative sentence. A kind of question asking sentence. The difference between these two is this affirmative sentence ends with a period, full stop. Negative sentence also ends with a full stop, or we call this punctuation mark as a period. Period. Both these sentences, affirmative as well as negative, end with a period. While as this interrogative sentence ends with this mark, which is known as note of interrogation or interrogative mark, right? So while making different kinds of sentences, we have to go through these affirmative sentences, negative sentences, and interrogative sentences. And yes, there is one more, that is negative interrogative sentence. Negative interrogative sentence. Negative interrogative sentence, which contains not as well as a question. So keep it in mind. Now we are going to start our today's topic. We shall start with present tense. Present tense. In general, present tense indicates those actions that happen now or that happen at present time. The first case that we are going to study is present simple tense. Present simple tense or simple present tense. What kind of tense is this? This present simple tense contains all those sentences which are true in general. So when we speak about the sentences that are true in general, are those sentences which indicate a person's present routine. We express them in present simple tense. The structure for present simple tense is subject plus verb in its first form, or the first form of the verb is used with the subject. I'm sorry, I should have discussed this subject before starting this lecture, but here it is. In English grammar, what a subject is. It is I, we, you, they, he, she, it, or any name. These all are individually known as a subject in English grammar. So, let me take an example to make it more clear. Subject plus V1, that's verb in its first form. Say, suppose I will say, I work in a factory. I work in a factory. This I here is subject. And work is the verb in its first form. Alright? It's not in progressive form, it's in its basic form. That's why this makes it a simple present tense. So for making simple present tense, what do? We write subject with verb in its first form. Alright? However, we have to make a few modifications. For third person singular, what we do, we add S, I will write for third person singular, for third person singular, this verb is modified. We add S or ES. How? Let's try to change the first sentence. I work in a factory. If we write third person singular here, he work. No, we have to add S. He works in a factory. He works in a factory. So we add this S in case of third person singular. Take another example. I said we add S or ES. If I say, I go to school daily. I go to school daily. Look at this form of verb. Its basic form, go. If I intend to modify it in case of third person singular, we say she goes to school daily. So here it is. In the first case, we added S. It depends upon the verb. And in the second case, we have added ES with go. But the difference is we do it when we have a third person singular. All right? Now, all these sentences, look at the sentences once again. I work in a factory. He works in a factory. I go to school daily. She goes to school daily. All these sentences are first assertive sentences, and then these are affirmative sentences because there is no use of not. All right? Now, what happens when we write negative sentences? Negative sentences in present simple tense. Negative sentences. Take the first example. Recall it. I work in a factory. If I intend to say that no, I do not work in a factory, how I will write it? All right. I do not work in a factory. I do not work in a factory. Or the second example, I do not go to school daily. I do not go to school daily. In both the cases, what we have seen, subject is as such, verb is as such, work and go. And here we have mentioned do not. Now, can we apply it in case of third person singular as well? No, we cannot. We cannot write do not. She does not work in a factory. He does not go to school daily. So there is a bit of difference. What's the difference? When we write negative sentences, for all other subjects like I do not, we do not, you do not, they do not, he, it's not do not, does not, she does not, it does not, or name once again becomes third person singular. So what we do for third person singular, we add does not. Remember, we are talking about present simple tense. And in present simple tense, we are discussing formulation of negative sentences. So what is the structure? It's subject plus do not or does not. Do not or does not plus basic form of the verb or the first form of the verb. This is the basic structure for making negative sentences. So dear students, there is one more case. every time we will not come across affirmative and negative sentences. Sometimes we face or we have to write interrogative sentences as well. So the third case is interrogative. Interrogative. Remember one thing, the identity or the identification of interrogative sentences is that they end with this mark. They end with this mark. If you do not put this note of interrogation after an interrogative sentence, the sentence will be taken as incorrect. All right? So, let's see, in case of first example, I said, I work in a factory. I work in a factory. What happens if we are intending to make an interrogative sentence? Look at it. Do I work in a factory? Do I work in a factory? Is there any change? Of course, yes. We place something before the subject. And what's that subject? What's that something? It's do. Once again, it varies. We make use of does in case of third person singular. Look at these two examples. Do I work in a factory? That's a question. Do I work in a factory? Do you work in a factory? Do they work in a factory? But when it comes to third person singular, what we write? Does. Does she work in a factory? It should not be like, does she works in a factory? We often make such kinds of mistakes. We make we add s or es in case of interrogative interrogative sentence as well, but that's incorrect. In present simple tense, when you want to show a kind of interrogative sentence in case of third person singular, always remember, use only first form of the verb. So here it is. This is the correct format to write. Does she work in a factory? Does Faisal go to school daily? Does Faisal go to school daily? It's not does Faisal goes to school daily. No, because we are talking about interrogative sentences. So what is the structure? It is do or does. Do or does. Does, you know, for third person singular. Does is used for third person singular. And then we add subject, which means we put do or does before the subject in case of interrogative sentences. And then, of course, we make use of first form of the verb. We make use of first form of the verb. That's how these sentences are formed. Different sentences are formed in case of affirmative sentences, in case of negative sentences, and in case of interrogative sentences. But yes, of course, there is one more case, that's negative interrogative sentence. A sentence that makes a sense like you make use of not as well as a question. Say suppose, all right, negative interrogative. Negative interrogative. Negative interrogative sentence. Take the example. There are actually two ways to write a negative interrogative sentence. Do I not work in a factory? Or we generally say, do I know how to play, or do I not know how to play? All right? Do I not work in a factory? Does he not work in a factory? Does he not work in a factory? This is actually a combination of negative sentence and interrogative sentence, which makes it a negative interrogative sentence. But remember, what we do, we once again place do or does before the subject. We add do or does before the subject. And then we add not. And then verb in its basic form. Remember, in all the cases we have seen in present simple tense, we make use of first form of the verb only, except affirmative sentences. In case of affirmative sentence, we add s or es to the root verb, right? So, I earlier said that there are two ways of writing negative interrogative sentences. First one is do or does, and then subject, and then not. And the second one is, we can also write it as do not I work in a factory. So what we do? We add do and not, or does and not before the subject. So do not, or does not before the subject, and then a root form of the verb. So this is how these four kinds of sentences are formed in case of simple present tense. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back with the rest part of tense, and hopefully by tomorrow, inshallah, we shall be talking about present continuous tense. Thanks for watching.